Hi, welcome to my video on the review of graphing each trig function from the basic equation. So this is a review of the sine, cos, tan, cot, secant, and cosecant, and I'm reviewing it to show you some patterns. So let's look at the graph of y equals sine theta, y equals cos theta, tan, cot, secant, and cosecant. Okay, look at the sine. I have this sheet made up, and I didn't want to do it on the previous sheet that I covered up, but I just wanted to show you. This is a unit circle whose radius is 1. At 0, we have 1, 0. At 90, we have 0, 1. 180, we have negative 1, 0. At 270, we have 0, negative 1. X is equal to cos theta, y is equal to sine theta. We have an ordered pair x comma y, and x is the cos of theta, and y is the sine of theta on the unit circle. And notice we have x. Cos is associated with the x, sine is associated with the y. Knowing that, let's take this sheet and put it here. And I didn't want to put this, I wanted to have all the 6 of them on the same page so you see the pattern. And the sine is, we're going from 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. And the sine is the y. So the y at 0 degrees is 0. The y at 90 is 1. The y at 180 is 0. The y at 270 is negative 1. And the y at 360 is 0. So the sine graph, 0 gives you 0, 90. And again, this is 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. So 90 is a 1, 180 is a 0, 270 is negative 1, and 360 is 0. So the sine graph is, as you've seen in the sinusoidal functions in trig, the sine graph is a sideways S starting from at 0 and finishing at 360. So this is the pattern for sine, and the period of sine is 360, and the increments is the period over 4. So the period of the function is 360 divided by 4, so it's gone up by 90s. And just to mention that, I'll do cos first. So we could have y equals, or we could have x equals. So this could be an x, really. We could rub out the y and say x equals cos theta on the circle, on the wrapping function. And again, we'll go 0 degrees, 90, 180, 270, 360 degrees. And cos is the x, so at 0 we have a 1. We have a 0 at 90. We have a negative 1 at 180. We have a 0 at 270. And back to 360 we have a 1. So this is again 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. 0 gives you 1. 90 gives you 0. 180 gives you negative 1. 270 gives you 0. And 360 gives you 1. So the cos graph is, just trying to make that a sideways C here. Here it is. And again, the sine graph is a sideways S starting at 0, ending at 360. The cos graph is a sideways C starting at 0 and ending at 360. And the period for cos theta is 360. And the increment changes is the period divided by 4. So 360 divided by 4 is a 90. So we did that in the sinusoidal function on sine and cos, but these are very important to know, have memorized. Now, the tan, let's look at tan, cot, secant, and cosecant. The period of sine and cos is 360. The period of tan is going to be different. The period of tan is 180. The period of cot is 180. The period of secant is 360. And the period of cosecant is 360. So the only two different ones, the period of tan and cot are 180. The period of all the rest are 360. And if we have that, then the increment changes the period divided by 4. So we have 180 divided by 4. So the increment changes between each one is 45. And here is the period divided by 4. So we have 180 divided by 4. So we have 45s. And here we have the increment changes, the period divided by 4. 360 divided by 4 gives you 90. And here we have the period divided by 4. 360 divided by 4 is a 90. So the increment changes for sine, cos, secant, and cosecant are 90 because the period is 360. But cot and tan is the period is 180, so the increment changes are 45. Now, tan is sine over cosine. Cot is cosine over sine. Secant is 1 over cos. Cosecant is 1 over sine. So what happens is that when I look at tan, I see cos is, if you have cos equal to 0, then tan will be undefined. So cos is, look at the tan graph, and we're increment change of 45. So the tan graph starts at negative 90, and it goes in increments of 45. So it's a negative 45, and it's a 0, 45, and 90, because the increment changes are 45. The degree is 180 degrees from negative 90 to a 90. So that means that it's at negative 90, tan, the cos of negative 90 is 0, so it's undefined. The tan of negative 45, so this is a negative 90, this is negative 45, 0, 45, 90. So tan is undefined at negative 90. The tan of negative 45 is negative 1, right here. The tan of, that's negative 1. The tan of 0, cos, sine is 0, cos is 1, so that's a 0. So at 0 we get a 0. And 45, the tan of 45 is 1. And the tan of 90 is undefined. Cos is 0. So tan is undefined at 90. So it's undefined at 90. And the theta is 1, which is right here. And because this is a vertical asymptote, then the tan graph comes, comes down like this, swings in, goes down to here. So there's the tan graph. And you can see it from negative 90 to a 90. Okay, the cot graph. The cot graph is, again, tan, sine is undefined at, sine is 0 at 0 degrees and 180 degrees. So sine is starting, the cot graph is starting at 0. And the increments are 45, so it's 0, 45, 90, 135, and 180. And so we have 0, 45, 90, 135, and 180. So at the sine of 0 is 0. The cos of 0 is 1. Because sine of 0 is 0, divided by 0, so it's undefined at 0. The sine of 45 is 1. the sine of 90 is 0, and the cot of 45 is 1, because it's the cos of 45 and the sine of 45 are the same, so you get a 1. Or you want to say that the cos of 45 is root 2 over 2, the sine of 45 is root 2 over 2, which gives you 1. And we got a 135, and cot is the same as 45, but it's negative. The tan is positive in quadrant 1, and in quadrant 2, which is 135, tan is negative, because add sugar to coffee. If you think about it, you add sugar to coffee, then everything is positive in quadrant 1. Sine and cosecant are positive in quadrant 2. Tan is positive in quadrant 3, and so is cot positive. And cos is positive in 4, and so is secant. So this is add sugar to coffee. That's the way I do it. Makes it easier to learn because it starts in the first quadrant. Anyway, it's undefined as 0, which is here. The tan of 45, which is here. The cot of 45 is 1. The cot of 90 is a 0. The cot of 135 is negative 1, which is here. And it's undefined right here at 180. Because the cos of negative 180 is negative 1, the sine of 180 is 0. Negative 1 over 0 is undefined. So it's undefined at 180. So there it is. And so it's 1, 0, negative 1. So sine graph goes this way. So the cot graph goes this way. Just reverse. But the asymptotes for tan are at negative 90 and 90, because cos is 0 at negative 90 and 90 undefined. And the asymptotes for cot is 0 and 180, because sine at 0, 180 is 0, and division by 0 is undefined. So tan and cot have different asymptotes. So tan goes this way, and cot goes this way. Now we have secant. Secant, the period is 180. Secant, the period is 360. Cosecant, the period is 360. The only one that has period of 180 is tan and cot. All the rest got a period of 360. Again, right here, tan got sine over cosine. So secant got 1 over cosine. So tan starts at negative 90. So does secant start at negative 90. But the difference is the tan got intervals of 45, whereas secant got intervals of 90. So you add 90 on, you add 90 on, you add 90 on, and you add 90 on. And look at sine. Sine starts at, again, cot started at 0. So I know that this is going to start as 0. And the increments of 90, so we get a 90, we get a 180, we get a 270, and we get a 360. I repeat, I learned this is 360 for period, 360, 360, 360. Tan and cot got periods of 180. And again, tan, cos is on the bottom, starts at negative 90. And secant, cos is on the bottom, starts at negative 90. The intervals here are 45, the intervals here are 90. And cot, sine is on the bottom, so it starts at 0 because it's undefined at 0. So therefore secant starts at 0. But again, the increment changes here are 45, because 180 divided by 4. Here it's a 90. And so let's go back, just making sure. This is how I learned the pattern. And if you do, this is undefined right here. So the cos of negative 90 is 0, so it's undefined. The cos of 90 is 0, so it's undefined. The cos of 270 is 0, and 1 over 0 is undefined. So these are undefined first, third, and fifth. And the cos of 0 is 1, so this is a 1. The cos of 180 is negative 1, so 1 over negative 1 is negative 1. And I know also that the table here, this is the same here. So this is undefined, 1, undefined, negative 1, undefined. And again, cos is vertical asymptote equal to 0 at negative 90. This one starts at 0. So it has the vertical asymptote, and we got to go start at negative 90. So we go here. We got a 0, 90, 180, 270. So it's undefined at negative 90, undefined at 90, undefined at 270. And what happens is that, excuse my arm there, cos is this graph here. So cos, if you take this graph right here and draw it, so here's the cos graph doing this, and that continues on. So if it continues on like this, again, there it is. So what happens is that if this is the cos graph, then it's the cos graph is undefined at negative 90, 90, 270. And at 0, it's a 1. So what happens is that this is positive here. So that means the secant graph between negative 90 and 90 goes upward, because of whatever angle you have. If this is a half, this becomes a 2. If that's a negative half, that becomes negative 2. So all the values of cos in here are between 0 and 1, and the reciprocal of those numbers are up above. So it's like it's flipped over. Like you take this and flip it over. And also this is negative 1, so this is flipped. So take this part here, think about it, take this loop right here and flip it over at the 1, because the reciprocal of negative 1 is negative 1, reciprocal of 1 is 1. So there's the secant graph in between these two. And there are more. This goes on because it's repeated. So it's like this, and it continues like this. And so this piece right here would be down like this. And so, but this is the basic, this is how I remember it. And right here, we start at 0, we got a 90, 180, 270, 360. And again, it's undefined at 0, undefined at 180, is undefined at 360, and it's a sine graph. So the sine graph starts here. Here's the sine graph, like this, and I can go up there like that, or I can go down here like this. It keeps on going. And so if you take this part right here, which is positive, and flip it, get its reciprocal, then it does this. And this is a negative 1, so the reciprocal of these numbers here are up here. So again, the two graphs are identical, except the asymptotes are in different spots. And this is the cos graph, and this is the sine graph doing the reciprocals. And that's how I learned it. Again, the period for tan and cot are 180. The period for the other four are 360. And the intervals you divide by 4. And you see where they start off. This one, tan and secant, starts off at negative 90, negative 90. Whereas cot, which is sine, cosecant, which is sine, starts at 0. So this is the pattern that I've learned, and keep it in my head. Learn the patterns. Okay, if you like my video on the patterns that I developed, then click on the like button if you like it, and the subscribe button if you wish. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com. to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Mathfully Explained, which is just one word. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video was of some help to you. Bye-bye.